Hi, I wonder if you could help me out. I am looking to hire a global head of growth for Automated Creative. So a little bit about us. We're on a mission to help brands turn their impressions into intelligence. We have a technology that researches consumers by analysing how they respond to optimised paid advertising. It's very fancy, very cool, and very successful for brands like Adidas, Samsung, Diageo, Reckitt, KFC, Pernod Ricard, Bose, Unilever, GSK, and people like NCS. So we've been doing brilliant work for the past few years, and we want to hire someone that can help us grow our portfolio of exciting and innovative clients. So if you or someone you know have been working in sales or new business for the last 10 or 15 years and would like to talk to us about the position, please could you give me an email on tom@automatedcreative.net. Right, on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders, and this week is absolutely no different. I'm on a call with Monika Schulze, who is Head of Customer and Innovation Management at Zurich Insurance Company. She's also an advisory board member at another two companies. Monika, for those of the people who are listening to this podcast who don't know who you are and what you do, could you give them an overview of your career and what you do today?
Hi, Tom. So first of all, I'm happy to be on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. And looking at my career, I always say there are three different pillars. So number one was my time at Unilever, almost 20 years. Then I had a small period or shorter period where I formed a company. And the third one is now insurance industry, and I'm working for Zurich for the last 13 years. And all three episodes of my life, of course, influenced my beliefs, my marketing skills, my marketing expertise, and what I'm doing.
What was your company that you set up?
It was called Monika Schulze Consulting. It was very creative, yeah. And
nice.
And what I did is consulted companies in strategic work, and specifically also saying strategy into action, because I think that a lot of people are struggling to combine both. A lot of, especially consulting companies, are very good in creating shiny PowerPoints, but when it then comes to how do you get into action and how do you make it real and have real life examples, a lot of companies and people struggle.
So what I'm curious to know across that career is what has been the best investment of your own time, money, or energy in your career?
I was always very curious to live and work in other countries. And my best investment was to say, I have to work and also live abroad in order to find out what is it to be a German, and what is it that is Monika Schulze. And if I look at other people and other cultures and other things people are doing, what do I believe is it about me? Is it about our culture? And what I think is good? And what do I want to avoid in the future? And I've lived and worked in the States, in Sweden. I've also traveled to Asia quite a lot. So a broad experience in different countries. And to be honest, at the beginning of my career, I was always like, I have to get away as far as possible. And the US was the big dream in the beginning. And my first stay abroad was in Sweden. And in the beginning, I was really disappointed, I have to say, because I thought, Sweden is around the corner from Hamburg. It takes you 4 hours to get there. And after 3 years living and working in Sweden, I said, this is the best thing that could happen to me, because I learned so much about leadership and the different styles of Germans and Swedish people leading teams, but also small things in life that I never thought about. And I give you a small anecdote, which I thought was telling. I brought a birthday cake when I had my birthday. And in Germany, you cut the cake in equal pieces and then serve people a piece of cake. When I came to the Swedish office and people looked at my pre-cut cake, everybody was a bit irritated and said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, because you do that in Germany and then serve people a piece of cake." And they said, no, this is not the way we do it here in Sweden, because in Sweden you choose if you want to have a little piece or a bigger piece. So don't predetermine what you offer to people, because that is seen as impolite in our country. And that is a small thing, but it was a big eye-opener to me. So question what you're doing also in small things in order to understand the relationship you have with other people and how they see it through their eyes.
And what did you learn in the US? Do you have a similar anecdote that stuck out to you?
In the US, I have to say what I learned is it is very easy to get in touch with people. They're very friendly to you. And it is easy to navigate through the system, so to speak. What you have to understand is that it's not that easy to get in closer touch with the people. And if somebody says, "Oh, come by," and I invite you, that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do it. And in Germany, I mean, I at least took a lot of things very literal. Yeah? And if somebody said, "Oh, I invite you," I was in front of their door the next day, and I'm overdoing it. Yeah, I mean, to make the point. So the communication skills or the communication style in the US is very different to the German style. You always have to navigate what do people mean and where is it just a friendly gesture. Yeah?
So what new belief or behavior has been transformative in your career in the last few years?
I always struggled with, I have to admit, is this work-life balance. And especially during Corona times, now I have to say that I saw it as a great privilege to not travel that much anymore and have a better connection to my family and spend more time with my family. And it suddenly dawned on me that I was traveling too much, was not at home that much anymore. And being at home and having a closer connection to my husband, to my 3 kids, to my parents, to my sister, to my brother, made a big difference the last 2 years especially. And I think that is something we should value as a positive thing in those difficult times we had since last March.
So how has that affected the quality of your work?
I think the quality of my work didn't suffer at all, to be very honest, because I'm in Zurich for the last 13 years already. I have a big network and I know people. I can imagine that if people started in a new company and didn't have the network yet and didn't have a physical contact before we had the shutdown, that is a big difference. So establishing new relationships and new contacts is not that easy in those times. Other than that, I can do a lot of things, virtual, online, Teams. I personally don't have any problems working virtually as well.
And do you think that reconnection with your family has helped you do any kind of different work, or do you work quicker, or has it made you be more creative? I'm curious to know how that reinvention of that bond, if you like, has changed the way you work.
I mean, I had different steps in my life where I had the privilege, you can say, to step back a little bit and get out of the hamster wheel. Because if you have a high-profile job, it is very easy to get into this hamster wheel and do the same things over and over again, travel a lot, work a lot, have a lot of meetings. And the Corona times, and I had one period in my time before, my life as before as well, helped me to say, step back, reflect, and think about what you value in life, what is good and what is not that good. And especially getting feedback is something which I believe is a gift. And the privilege you have if you are in a family is that people give you feedback more often than people do it in the job.
That is true.
Especially if you are higher up in the ranks. I mean, nobody gives you proper feedback anymore. And I think this feedback loop is a gift. And my children, especially, and also my husband, are used to giving me feedback. I mean, things like sit down for lunch and eat properly and don't eat in front of your computer. I mean, trivial things like that are as important as you talk too fast and you were a bit aggressive on the phone to your poor colleague. Can you please? I mean, things like that. Nobody would tell me that
Right.
directly to my face. My children don't have any problems with that.
Great. So your family are almost like your career coaches.
Yeah, they are.
Fantastic.
Which I believe is very important in life. Yeah. If you don't get feedback anymore, I think you're in trouble.
So I just wanted to touch on that. So you said how you get up the ranks, the less feedback you get. Because is that because, or do you assume that's because people don't want to say the wrong thing and miss out on jobs, promotions, praise, and all the rest of it? So how do you make sure that you don't live in this senior marketer bubble where everyone just says yes to you? How do you make sure you get that feedback?
I think the most important point there is to be straightforward with your colleagues and team members as well, and encourage them to give feedback. And often people believe that if you give feedback, it's something negative. I mean, you can give positive feedback. You can say, well done, I liked it. You can say, there was something I didn't like. The main thing is that you respect people and give feedback in a way that people understand you and you don't hurt them. I think that is extremely important. In our team now, we encourage feedback, and it is as such that people dare to give feedback more than, I don't know, half a year ago. Having said that, equally, we have a culture of being very nice. And people are not used to giving feedback that much anymore. So it's not that easy. It's a fine balance between having a great team atmosphere and at the same time also tell people if something didn't work well or worked well, equally, the same thing.
So I'm curious to know, what is your killer marketing tip? What is that golden bit of advice that you give out most often to your team?
My killer marketing tip is, especially if you're a bit older, and I believe in age, because then you have a good expertise, rely on your gut feeling, post-rationalize, but if you have a longer marketing expertise, like 20 years or 20 years plus, it is often as such that you see something and you have a very good gut feeling if it works, yes or no. You can post-rationalize, but always think about your first gut feeling and then go for it, because we have a tendency to over-rationalize things. And often it is as such, especially if you want to get into this strategy into action, don't overcomplicate. It's sometimes better to get into action and rely on your gut feeling.
So can I infer from that you don't trust the gut feeling of people with less experience than you?
That was a good one. Yes, I also trust the gut feeling of people with less experience. Having said that, I'm also a big fighter for old age. It doesn't have to be negative. And sometimes, especially in our environment, I have the feeling this is young people and they know how to do it. And digital technology is associated with young people. And that I equally don't believe. Yeah? So I think you can also turn it around and say, I know enough experienced people that know how to do things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think the combination is good.
Today's episode is brought to you by Media for All, which was set up to help encourage more Black, Asian, and other ethnic talent into media, and to provide a support and mentoring network to ensure talent flourishes in the media industry that we all love. If you're looking for a mentor or would like to mentor young ethnic talent, check them out at mediaforall.org.uk, and it is all 100% free.
So we're at the halfway stage now, and we're going to talk about your shiny new object, which is augmented reality glasses, which is the last thing I thought you were going to talk about. So I'm intrigued. Can you explain to the audience what AR glasses are, and then let's get into it in a bit more detail?
So here's my story. I went to the Silicon Valley together with Zurich in 2014, and we visited a lot of companies because we wanted to improve our customer experience and find shiny new objects. And I was especially impressed by a company called Athia that focused on augmented reality software platforms, but then also glasses. And we put up a use case for our risk engineers. And if you imagine risk engineers going into a production site, they often have to climb ladders, look at the roof, do a lot of things that are relatively risky. And they often don't have two hands. They have their iPad in their hand, or in former times even notebook. Something to write. And if you have the glasses, you can put them on. You still see the environment around you, but equally you can use it as a computer by tapping into the air. You have a virtual screen. You tap in the air and can then video chat with your colleagues in the office. You can look at the information you have from former visits, and you have all the information you need without using your hands because you have the glasses. And I think that is something which is extremely helpful for the future. And if a lot of you remember that Google launched glasses some years ago as well, but that was B2C for end customers. And that didn't really take off because they were too expensive in the beginning and we didn't have enough use cases for them. B2B, I can imagine a lot of use cases, especially also if you operate patients, for example, and you don't want to go out if you have hourly operations and get information, because that is pretty complicated sometimes. You have to wash your hands, go out, then go in again. If you have those virtual glasses, you have a computer in front of you, or you have a virtual screen in front of you and get all the information you need. So that's something which completely fascinated me. I still believe in it. And when I brought the glasses home and my kids tested them, and my youngest daughter was 8 at that time, and then the twins looked at the glasses as well. They used them, they tapped into the air. It was very easy for them to navigate. And to be honest, I believe that is the future. It's still a bit too early. But in the future, we'll have virtual screens and glasses and not laptops in front of us. So that is my favorite shiny object. And I still believe it will have a great future, but we are not there yet technically, but also then mentally, because it's a completely different way of computing.
So one of the interesting adoptions of digital technology in the last year has obviously been video conferencing. Video conferences were always sort of seen as a poor meeting, and like sort of like a B-list meeting. You know, if you only do it if you have to. But the pandemic has forced us to take on that technology, and now we're all fairly conversant in Teams and Google Meet and Zoom and so on. But our hand was forced as an industry and as a society. So what is going to get heads-up visual displays into the mainstream? I know you said the technology is not quite there yet. I bought some Google Glass when they came out, and it didn't really work. And I see the innovations by people like Magic Leap that look absolutely fantastic, and their funding's just out of this world. So how is heads-up displays or augmented reality glasses going to make it onto the heads of the mainstream who don't necessarily even wear glasses? What do you think are the key stepping stones that need to happen? Is it another pandemic size incident, or how do you see that playing out in the next 5-10 years?
First of all, we have to master the technology, meaning you need glasses that are not that ugly and big. I'm sorry to put it like that. But if you today want to have glasses that have a lot of functionalities, they have to be bigger. And then also the big thing is the battery life. The batteries don't work that well yet, so that you can use them the whole day without any interruption. But also, I think it cannot be that you have heavy glasses and Magic Leap is still also not that nice, if you ask me. I wouldn't wear them the whole day. Yeah? I think they're nice for 1 hour, but the whole day is a bit too much. And technology has to be mastered. I think the software platform is easy to fix.
And so what are the problems that you think that augmented reality glasses could solve in a marketing context? Imagine they had the form factor and that worked, or it was contact lenses or some super lightweight glasses that didn't feel like any incumbent on your face. What do you think the opportunity is for marketers in that space, and what should they be thinking about now as they get ready for the technology evolving?
I believe that you can combine your own reality with virtual reality in a very nice way. And I give you one example, which I thought was impressive from a Dutch agency. They got the task from the National Ballet to make it more emotional and to make it more touchable for younger people. In this case, they even used the glasses as well. So what they did is that they put out a virtual reality platform where they brought the ballet dancers and the performance, and in that case was Swan Lake, into the homes of the people, and especially younger people. You get an emotional connection. You're part of you feel like you're part of the stage. You can stand next to the dancers. You can almost touch them. So you have a completely different emotional connection compared to if you only, in connotation marks, see an online ad saying, "Oh, please," or "go to the ballet because it's a nice experience." So feeling something, touching something is extremely important if you want to convince people to do something.
And so how do you balance the excitement and clear passion you have for this kind of technologies with the absolute basics of digital marketing and service that need to be hit? Certainly one school of thought that I come across quite a lot in this podcast is that, look, it's all this cool tech mixed reality stuff is great, but does your mobile website work? Or, how long does it wait? How long do you have to wait on a call before you speak to a customer representative? How do you, as someone in your role, balance the necessary needs of like mobile marketing or mobile website innovation with something as exciting and as exotic as AR glasses?
The big trick is to acknowledge that the basics have to be fixed. And I always say there are two work streams. There are the basics you have to fix, and there is the sexy new stuff. And you have to do both. And in the end, you have to combine both as well, because you have to set up a vision for where you want to go and how do you put both work streams together. And the experience I have is, don't tell people that fixing the basics is boring and the other stuff is the sexy stuff. I think it's important to do both. And in both cases, also demonstrate how you can contribute to business success. So that the people who do the new stuff don't have the feeling they are the better ones and the other ones don't. Because especially if you fix the basics and you can find a correlation between fixing the basics and influencing business results, I think that can be pretty cool as well.
And curious to know, how do you foster a culture of innovation at work? Because I used to be an innovation director at an agency, very different job, I imagine. But you had some people who loved that stuff, who were like, anything that was new and shiny, they jump all over it. And then you'd have some people who sort of raise their eyebrows and go, "Oh, that's interesting." And then you'd have some people who just like, just get that stuff away from me. I just want to get my job done. I just want to hit my target, blah, blah, blah. So I was in this constant battle of being able to inspire people and go, "Hey, look at this cool, shiny new thing," and have everyone go, "Yay." But then actually getting them to do anything was very, very difficult. So I'm curious to know, do you come across similar problems in your role? And if so, how do you deal with it?
By the way, I'm right now in the middle of forming a new team because we reorganized and my new team is now in place since 1st of April. So what I'm doing right now is forming a team and saying, look, we are one team. We have to help each other. And we are working on certain focus topics together. It is always helpful if you tell people what you want to achieve and then also define the contribution the individual has, but also the team has in order to achieve the results. And I'm a big believer in achieving results together because that leverage can help you to create positive energy. People want to achieve something. People want to be proud of something. And if you can demonstrate that you work together and then achieve that together, that is always very helpful. So the innovative people, the creative people, and also the process, more basic people have to work together to achieve one result. I think that's the trick, how to go there.
So we're getting towards the end of the podcast now, and it's absolutely worth mentioning that we were introduced by the guys at the Future Conference. So you're speaking there next month. So I'm curious to know, what are you going to be talking about, and what is the message that you'll be sharing at the Future Conference?
My big passion right now is customer experience, coming back to the fixing the basics and then looking at the innovative stuff as well. So how do I create a customer experience that people believe is worth paying for, and people also believe is different to others? Because customer experience everybody talks about customer experience right now, but that doesn't mean that everybody has to do the same. The question is, what can I do as a company in order to differentiate also through customer experience? And by the way, if somebody knows it, there's a peak end rule. That means that not everything has to be perfect. Important is that you have some things that people remember, especially in the end of the experience, so that they come back to you and say, yep, that is Zurich's customer experience.
Well, I'm doing some talks at that conference as well, and hopefully we won't overlap, but I'll definitely be checking out that section. So, Monika, if someone wants to get in touch with you about augmented reality glasses or customer experience or any of the other things that you've talked about, how would you like them to do that?
It's very easy to get in touch with me via LinkedIn.
And what makes a killer LinkedIn message to you that gets a response?
I can tell you, first I go to what doesn't work. If you write to me, oh, it's so nice to connect, and do you have 20 minutes so I can sell my platform to you? That doesn't work. Yeah? I mean, find something where we can get into a conversation and talk, but don't try to sell me something after 2 minutes being connected.
That is fantastic advice. Monika, thank you so much for your time today.
Tom, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the shiny new Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.